Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to Divination Death Witch. I'm Rain. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at 2026. We're going to talk about the numerology, and we're going to talk about the tarot for 2026 and what the year is looking like for us on a universal level. We're also going to have a bit of a chit chat, and I am going to try to put chapters into this video. It will just depend on whether or not I have the spoons to deal with that when it comes to editing and uploading the video. If you followed me, you know that the channel has really become just a hobby of mine. And so I was looking, and it's been a month since I uploaded a video. I really didn't intend or want it to be that long, but life had just kind of happened, and I am just going with the flow and not forcing myself to create content. And I've really struggled around that, especially lately, because I want to be productive and I want to do tarot and teach and all of these things. And all of that has kind of slowed down, and I've been trying to not push as much and pay more attention to my health, which is a good thing, but for a person like myself, that gets very frustrating. And one of the things I've often talked about on here is the fact of that because I am disabled, because I am chronically ill, I don't have the spoons or the bandwidth or the mana or the hit points, however you want to word it, to do the sort of social media push and presence I would need to do in order to break through all of the noise and everything in the tarot and woo-woo and spiritual and witchy genres, if you will. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank Ethany. If you're not familiar with Ethany Dawn, definitely check out her channel. She's a huge name in tarot. Her and I don't always agree on everything, which is perfectly fine, because the world would be so boring if we were all carbon copies of each other. But she is a very knowledgeable and proficient person in the tarot world, and she's one of the biggest names out there, at least in my personal opinion, I guess you could say. But she just did a video a few days before I'm recording this where she talks about how she's just one person and she can't keep up with it all. And so now she's to the point where she scaled up her business, and now she needs to scale back her business because of personal reasons, mental health, physical health, really, because eventually if she keeps going at the pace that she is going at, it will have a negative impact on her physical health as well. But I would like to thank her so much for talking about this, because as a disabled, chronically ill person, I have this intrinsic and external sort of pressure on me of, well, why can't you do it? And you should be able to do it. And why aren't you? It's just making TikToks. It's just making YouTube videos. It's just doing tarot readings. Certainly you have the bandwidth to do all of that. And really, at the level of hustle that you need to have in order to be successful and break through the noise in this, it's more than a full-time job. And I've said numerous times that by the time first of all, I wouldn't have the spoons just to do the amount of social media I would need to do. But even if I could get through that, I would never have enough spoons left to do the work. And the work is what's really important to me. But here is this, for all intents and purposes, and for everything we know about Ethany Dawn, here is this able-bodied person who is saying, this is not realistic. A person cannot continue to go at this pace and keep this pace up long term. This is not sustainable for a person to do. And to have someone who, at least as far as we know, because I don't want to ever make assumptions about anybody's personal life or their health or anything like that, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But from what we see and know of her, she is an able-bodied person, and she is saying, listen, like the amount of work that I've got to put into the social media and the marketing and the hustle and the managing this and the managing that, it's more than one person can bear. And so that really, I was having a moment where I was looking at my YouTube channel and going, gosh, I really should post a video, but I haven't posted in like a month, and I'm starting to feel a little bad about this and everything. And then I watched her video and I was like, you know what? I need to give myself more grace, because if someone who is at least perceived as able-bodied, if not able-bodied, is going, this is too much for one person, this isn't sustainable, then I should definitely not be down on myself for not being able to sustain it. And honestly, that took a little off my plate and made me be able to further give myself permission to just have this as a hobby and to not feel like I am obligated to churn out content, or that I am a bad practitioner or teacher because I don't churn out content daily, weekly, etc. And that kind of breathing room is honestly what got me to the point where I could record today's video, because I was in that sort of shame, guilt spiral about not making content. And when I get into that headspace, I have a really hard time coming up with what content I want to create. So because I had that breathing space, I was like, you know what? We are almost to the new year. I love at the end of the year in December doing readings for the year ahead. So I like to calculate the tarot card of the year. I like to look at what the year is as a universal year in numerology. I also do my personal year, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to look at the universal year, because that applies to all of us as a collective. And I like to do sort of look ahead readings for the year ahead. So in this video, we're going to talk about the universal year number for 2026. We're going to look at the universal tarot card for 2026. And then we're going to do a little reading for the collective, a little look ahead at 2026 reading for the collective. Because I think these are fun, and they're meant to be fun. They're meant to be sort of empowering and light, and just a little something to maybe help give us some direction or some guidance for the year ahead, which I think, even though this is a yearly practice for me, we can really use right now, especially here in the United States. Everything is so chaotic and stressful and unprecedented historical events nearly daily in this country. So I think we can use something a little light to give us some guidance, some hope, and some direction for the coming new year. Let's start off with numerology. In numerology, the year 2026 is going to be a universal year 1, which means we are starting a new 9-year cycle. So in numerology, if you're not too familiar with it, as a general rule, just to oversimplify and boil it down, we really work with the numbers 1 through 9. Now, yes, there are other numbers involved. There's master numbers, special exceptions, but as a general rule, we work from 1 to 9. And when we're talking about universal years, we use that 1 to 9. So 1 is the beginning of a cycle and 9 is the completion of a cycle. So we are starting a new 9-year cycle in numerology. Now, this is as a collective. Yes, you do have your individual year number, and when you know it, you can interpret the two together to get a little more guidance for yourself. But as far as the collective goes, it is a universal year 1. So with this, we're talking new beginnings, we're talking innovation, we're talking self-discovery and creating a new identity for the self, or solidifying an identity for ourself that we are just taking on. It's a year for making bold and courageous moves overall as a collective. We are also setting the foundation and the tone for this 9-year cycle that we are starting out in. So taking the time to build a good foundation for ourselves on an individual level, but also as a collective, will really help to set us up for success over this 9-year cycle. The universal tarot card for 2026 is the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is a card that talks about movement. It talks about cycles of time. So it's very appropriate that we have a Wheel of Fortune, the cycle of time, and it's a year 1, which is a new beginning. So we are starting a new cycle. So that goes very well together in a collective sense. It can be about luck, changes in luck. It could be about fate, however you define that, changes in status. It can be about the movement of time. It can be about progression of ideas. Tia Dalma in the Pirates of the Caribbean might even be tempted to say about 2026 that it has a touch of destiny about it. But remember, as I always say, our fates are not written in stone. The future is not predetermined. And so you are at the helm. It is up to all of us as individuals and a collective to decide what our fate is and then create that fate for ourselves. Yes, this year looks to bring a lot of changes, but there's so much potential for us to shape the way this next 9-year circle and beyond will go by what we choose to do and how we choose to act in the year 2026. And just like there is a universal year that applies to the collective, and then you can calculate your personal year, and then you can interpret the two of those together, everyone also has a personal tarot card for the year 2026. Now, the way I do that is I use the major arcana only, just like I use the majors only to calculate the fact that 2026 is the Wheel of Fortune. And you can interpret that on its own or in conjunction with the universal tarot card for the year. If you would like to know your tarot card for 2026, it can be calculated very easily. You will add together each individual number in your birth month, your birthday, and the year 2026. And then you will reduce that to a number between 1 and 22, so that corresponds with one of the 22 major arcana cards. Now, I am well aware, the 21st card is the World. There is no card number 22, and there is no 0 in this formula. So what we do is we revert back to in olden times when the major arcana was put in order. The Fool was actually put at the end, not the beginning. It actually came after the World when you were putting the majors in order. So the Fool is card 22 in this system. So, for example, let's take my birthday. Everybody knows I'm a Beltane baby, so you'll take the number 5 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 6, and that gives you 16. So my card for the year 2026 is the Tower, which I find very interesting. Even I get a little bit of a when I see the Tower come out, and for that to be my year card, but I need to remember that the Tower is about letting whatever doesn't serve you fall away to come down to your foundation, your core, and to shore that up to make sure that that foundation is solid so that you can build something better upon it. So when we look at that Tower along with the Wheel of Fortune and with the fact that it is a universal year 1, yes, I could see some unexpected changes or shakeups in 2026 with that Tower there. No, those are never comfortable. They're never fun because it's unexpected. But just because it's unexpected doesn't mean that it is bad. If I take control of my fate and I'm steering the course and I'm deciding what foundation I want to build and what I want to build from that, and I am taking control of the parts that I can take control of, I can navigate any unexpected changes or surprises. They could actually be good things for me because I am shedding what no longer serves me and I am beginning to build and forge something new. And in showing you that example, you can kind of see how all of it can be tied together. So if you calculate your tarot card and then you think about them in relation to the universal tarot card and the universal year, you can kind of paint a picture for yourself to give you a little idea of what you want to do to prepare yourself for 2026 and make 2026 as successful as possible for you. Now, if you don't want to calculate your own year, that is perfectly fine. I have not been doing readings. I have been taking a break from that, really. I've only been doing a very select handful of readings over the last month or so. But I thought for the holidays, it would be fun. I've done this before in the past. It was really popular, where on the Etsy shop, I have a listing. I'll link it in the description box below, where I calculate your year ahead card for you. Then I send you a PDF that has a little blurb about what themes and things go along with that card being your card of the year. Now, there are only 22 possible responses. Those are pre-written, but everyone who orders, I do calculate from your birthday what your card for 2026 is. So I like to be clear about that. Yes, the responses, because the tower is the tower is the tower, the lovers are the lovers are the lovers, etc., etc. But I do calculate it for each person who is ordering. And it is a printable PDF, so if you want to print it off, you have that. So if you want a little treat for you, or maybe you just don't want to interpret the card, even though you can do the math, that's perfectly okay. I will do it for you then. And I have had a lot of people order these for friends and family as stocking stuffers for the holiday. I only charge $1 for these, so I make less than 50 cents off of them. It is just something I am doing for funsies, for anyone who either doesn't want to calculate their year card for 2026, or they'd like to have them as stocking stuffers for friends and family for the holidays. Now let's get into our look ahead spread for the collective for 2026. I'm going to break this into a couple of different parts. First, we're going to do some cards from the tarot. Then we're going to do some oracle cards with messages. And then we are going to do a card for each zodiac sign for 2026. Now, some people have asked why I never do live video where you see me in the videos. It is because I am a chronically ill person. I already can't put out a lot of content. If I've got to worry about my appearance on top of everything, that's even fewer videos. Even when I do take the time to do full makeup and hair, when I look at the videos, I see all the physical signs of my illnesses. I realize that other people don't, but I do. So I used to do videos where I showed myself. I don't anymore because I'm just not comfortable at this point in my illnesses doing that. And so, especially since this is a hobby, I don't feel the need to stress myself out about that sort of thing. But even though I just usually do a thumbnail for the whole video, I am going to try to take pictures of the cards that we wind up pulling, and you should be looking at those as we're talking. Again, I'm trying to give myself permission to just do what I can. So these are not going to be professional photographer grade photos of the cards. I am just at my desk with my desk lamp on, with my very wrinkled reading cloth down. And I'm just going to take the best picture I can with the lighting I have. I'm not going to worry about it or stress about it. It's just going to have to be good enough. And that's what we are going to do. Also, when we get to the Zodiac cards, they are just going to be sort of keywords for each sign. The deck that I'm going to use is the Universal Folk Oracle, and they have a lot of keywords on them. So I'm not going to be doing like a full in-depth reading for each card and each sign. So I'm going to break this into chapters where I'm going to have the tarot portion. Then I'm going to have the oracle messages portion from the collective ancestors. And then I'm going to have a portion that is zodiac signs. So if you don't have the patience to listen to all of the zodiac signs before yours, that is okay. I recommend putting the video on 2x speed or just skipping a little bit ahead. Depending on where your zodiac sign is in the 12, I will do them in the traditional order starting with Aries, just to give you a heads up. So I'm trying to put together a pretty entertaining and hopefully empowering and informative reading for you, but I'm also trying to balance with not overspending spoons. So while in an ideal world, I might set this up a little bit differently, this is what we're doing so that I have enough spoons to produce this video and these readings rather than overextending myself and either not being able to do it at all or having to do less. So this is our compromise, and this is how we're going to roll in this particular video. I did debate on whether or not I should shuffle where you can hear me on the mic or if I should shuffle sort of off mic, if you will. And that I know that there are a lot of people that because I don't have video for the reasons I've explained of me actually shuffling the cards and everything, because it's just harder to set all of that up. I don't wish to be on camera at this stage in my life, etc. I figure it's best, just like in my readings that I do when I do them on Etsy or for individual clients, I always leave in the shuffling sound so that you know that I'm actually shuffling the deck and doing the reading. So I opted to leave that in here. I know other people get annoyed by that because they consider it a waste of time. They just want to get to the information and the cards already. So I've shuffled a little bit. I forgot to pull out the Wheel of Fortune. This is the real deal. We're keeping it absolutely true to the brain fog that is chronic illnesses, and I forgot to pull the Wheel of Fortune out of this deck before I started shuffling because it is sort of our anchor card, our theme card for the year 2026, as it is the universal tarot card for the year. So we just want to keep that down so that we keep in mind that we're talking about cycles and movement, change, luck, fate, things like that. And we're also keeping in mind that it is a year number 1. There we go. I have now retrieved the Wheel of Fortune to set it aside as our anchor card for this reading. And I'm just going to leave all that in because you know what? I need to stop worrying about trying to be perfect and just, reality and living with chronic illnesses and brain fog and forgetting things happens. I do try to edit out all the times where I get tongue-tied because that is part of my cognitive issues with my disabilities, is that I will mess up the pronunciation of words that I know how to pronounce, but just as I speak, I get tongue-tied. I try to edit all of that out because I used to be a very good orator. I was known for my speaking, particularly my public speaking, and I feel like that is not something I'm quite as good at because I will trip over words sometimes, now a lot more than I used to. And I try to edit that out a lot. That's another reason why I don't do the videos and I do the audio recording, because it's easier to edit out every time I trip over my words when I'm doing audio only. All right, so that all said, let's give it another shuffle or two, and then we'll begin drawing cards for our look ahead at the year 2026 for the collective. Now, this isn't like a, who's going to win what election or, what celebrity is going to get an Emmy sort of look ahead. This is spiritual guidance so that we can create the best 2026 for ourselves that is possible as a collective. This is entirely meant to be a reading that shows us how we can work as a collective to better uplift humanity as a whole in 2026. So this isn't individual to any one person. This is how we as a collective can work together to lift all of us up as a whole. All right, that feels good. I think we're good with that shuffle. So the first card that we are going to look at is what we as a collective can leave behind in 2025. And here we have, oh, this is funny. Here we have the Emperor, right? Which is a little Napoleon. This is the Chocoli Tarot in case anyone doesn't recognize it, but it's a little Napoleon on a rocking horse. I'm not going to say a lot for this one as to what we can leave behind in 2025. There are some obvious Cheeto colored connections that I could make. Maybe a mango Mussolini type thing. We're going to leave that aside, right? You get where I'm going with that, but we're going to look at it a little differently. In general, as a society, we really need to leave behind any sort of hope or rationale that any sort of fascist, dictatorship, authoritarian sort of leadership is going to actually get us anywhere. So if anyone's still holding on to any notion that these authoritarian regimes, these institutions that seek to suppress, oppress, repress different groups are going to get us anywhere as a whole, if anyone is clinging to the notion that any good can be squeezed out of these, that needs to be left behind in 2025. We really need to let go of any sort of blinders as a whole. We need to see things as they are, and we need to see that, he's not on a horse. He's on a rocking horse. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not actually going to get us to any sort of desired destination. So leaving behind any sort of regimes or institutions that aren't actually going to advance us in any way, leaving behind any support for them, any notions that they are sort of harmless because they are stalling us out, so they are not harmless. That all needs to be left behind. And hopefully through our actions, we can actually leave these things and not just leave I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is. Like, if we think, it'll be okay, we just need to hold on and get through it, it really won't be that bad. We need to leave those notions behind, but even more so if we can, we need to leave the actual people and institutions that this card represents behind in 2025. We need to cut them off. We need to give them no more form of fuel or support moving into and through 2026. The next card is what to embrace for 2026. Oh, how fabulous. You guys heard me shuffle the cards, right? It is a year one. Now, when we do the card of the year, remember that I talked about the fact that the Fool is 0 in the tarot, but we put it as 22 for the whole card of the year. But the energy of a universal year one very much lines up in a lot of ways with the Fool in the tarot, even though they're not the same numerically. So what we can really embrace in 2026 is really leaning into that universal year one energy, really leaning into the fact of we have the potential and the opportunity to really start something new. As a collective, remember, this is not an individual reading, this is a collective. We can come together as a society and say, we're no longer accepting this as a society. This is the goal that we want for humanity. This is the goal that we want for the collective. And this is what we are going to work towards. Now, transition years, this is a bit of a liminal space that we're in right now, going from 2025 to 2026. It is a transitionary period because we're closing out a cycle with 2025 and we're starting a new cycle with 2026. And so we can really lean into the potential here and the fact that we have this opportunity to really create through the universal year one and the full embarking on a journey. And we don't necessarily need to have it all figured out. That's the thing about the Fool. We don't need to have it all figured out. The Fool doesn't really know what's going to happen. The Fool is taking a leap of faith. So trust that if we act and we as individuals collectively move to make a better society, a better community, a better world for ourselves, then it will come to be. It will happen. It may or may not look how we think it might or imagine, or if we can't imagine it at all, then we will be in awe and surprise at what we can do when we work together. But what to embrace is really leaning into this potential for us to create something new. And while full energy and universal year one energy can be a little bit scary to some of us, or in some cases because we don't know where we're going to wind up, we don't know how it's going to turn out, it still is also a very exciting time because there are so many opportunities open to us, especially if we realize that we have much more power than we give ourselves credit for, and that we really can shape the world around us, especially when we work as a collective. The next card is what we can draw power from as a collective. And for that, we have the Empress, which is very interesting because we had the Emperor for what to let go of, but we have the Empress as what we can draw strength from. So one of the things about the Emperor and the Empress, if we break these down into energies, the Emperor is about sending out things. The Emperor can be in a negative context about domination and oppression. And the Empress is about receiving. It's also about nurturing, but it's about giving and receiving nurturing. So really, and this is so interesting because my TikTok has been flooded with the Buddhist monks doing the walk for peace. They just finished walking through Louisiana, which is the state I live in now, like 2 days before I filmed this. They were walking through a very different part of Louisiana than I live in, so I did not get to go and see them and greet them as I would have loved to have done. But it's very interesting that we have this notion of giving and receiving nurturing, and the important word here that made me think of the Buddhists is compassion. So where we can draw our power from as a collective is empathy and compassion. And if you've been paying attention at all, I'm sure that you have heard specific people talk about empathy as what is wrong with humanity and society, and that it's unnatural and that it's a negative thing. It is not. Empathy and compassion are imperative for human survival, for human happiness, for well-being, just for everything, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Empathy and compassion are imperative and among some of the most important things that we can receive and give to each other. So our power really comes from our ability to be compassionate and have empathy. And, we have that in varying degrees, and depending on what's going on situationally, we can react with that to varying degrees. I'm not saying we all need to be Buddhist monks and have their level of compassion and empathy, because that is a tall order. I have a lot of admiration for them. But I have found myself here in the South, they have the expression, "Oh, bless your heart," and it's not a good thing, right? Like if somebody says "bless your heart," it's not positive, right? We've all caught on to this by now, right? Okay, but the monks in a lot of the videos, they will say, "May you be happy," and I have found myself since watching these. So there's somebody that over the last year or so has really sort of, I guess, hurt my feelings, wounded me, they were someone I considered a very close friend, and then I wound up walking away from them because of behaviors that they were exhibiting, that they knew the impact it was having on me. They did not change, and so I walked away. And then time went by, and we had a discussion, and I thought things were good. They then, after that, asked to come back in my life, and then they repeated the behavior, and so I have walked away again. And I say all of this to say that my response to that has been, may he be happy, right? And it's a little like the bless your heart, you know what I mean? Like, may you be happy. You believe 2 + 2 = 5. You run with that. Let me know how that maths for you in the long run. But may you be happy. And I don't wish this person to be unhappy. I really do want the person to be happy. I just know that there's some things, you know what I'm saying? And so my point here is, even if we can't have the Buddhist level of compassion and empathy for mankind, because it's like, as a TikToker I saw said, it's really hard to make the Buddhist mad, but you've made the Buddhist mad. I've kind of taken this idea of, okay, maybe I'm still wounded. Maybe I am not ready to be that person's cheerleader, but I can say, may he be happy. And I do want him to be happy. I just not quite leveled up to the Buddhist monk wanting him to be happy, cheering from, the rooftops for him, but may he be happy. And I say this to say that if that's the level of compassion and empathy you can have at this point in time, to just say, may they be happy, then that is good enough in that moment. If we can have more empathy and compassion for people, great, fantastic. That's what we're striving for. As much empathy and compassion as possible. But if we have to say, may they be happy, then may they be happy. All right, so the next card that we are going to look at is what we should be staying conscious of during this time. And this is not a warning card. This is not like an omen or a warning. This is just something that we want to be mindful of as we move through 2026. We want to be conscious of and mindful that our actions have consequences. And consequences, as I tell my children, is not a negative word. There are positive consequences to our actions, and there are negative consequences to our actions, and sometimes there's neutral consequences to our actions. It depends on what the action is. Every, action has a response. While we are embracing that full energy and being able to take leaps of faith, that year one energy where we're making bold moves, we want to make calculated bold moves. We want to think through our leaps of faith. We want to pick a direction and then make the leap towards that idea or goal or place or space. A leap of faith is not blind faith. It is best for us to remember to keep our wits about ourselves. Fuck ICE, but don't do it in a way that's going to get you thrown in jail as well. Especially, in some states, people have really been able to push back against ICE. In the state of Louisiana, they have made it illegal to interfere with ICE operations. And so, therefore, we have to be very creative and calculative in how we try to keep our communities safe from ICE and their kidnapping campaigns, because that's what it is. We're just going to be honest and real here. And if you disagree with me, then this is not the channel for you. But we have to get creative, right? That's kind of like things we need to be conscious of. There are consequences. If we do the right thing here in Louisiana, we can have negative consequences for a positive action. So we've got to get creative. We've got to think it through. We've got to come up with innovative and creative solutions to the very cold weather that we have here right now. And that's just one example in all areas of what we are doing as a collective in 2026. We need to think things through. We need to get creative and find solutions for the issues that we have as a society. The last tarot card that we're going to draw is how we as a collective can move through 2026 with strength. And that card is the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is also, like the Empress, someone who is nurturing. The Queen of Cups is emotionally intelligent. The Queen of Cups is motivated by love and connection and compassion and empathy. So that is part of how we can move through 2026 in strength. Remember, emotions are not a weakness. In fact, they can be advantageous. They can be motivation and impetus for us to do great things, not only for ourselves, but for the benefit of all humankind. Work on emotional regulation on an individual level, and that helps to regulate us emotionally as a society. All right, so those are the tarot cards that we are looking at for 2026. I'm going to grab a photo of what we have out right now on the table, and then I'm going to get ready for the Oracle message cards part of this reading. Now I'm going to draw 3 cards from the Vintage Wisdom Oracle, and this is going to be a message from the collective ancestors or the ancestors of the collective, however you wish to word it and conceptualize it. But in my practice, I have found that there are these spirits that are ancestors of all of us. There are, I've talked about this before, different types of ancestors when you're doing ancestor work. There are the ancestors of your blood. There's the ancestors of your people. There are affinity ancestors and all that. And so when I talk about the ancestors of the collective or the collective ancestors, I'm talking about ones that come from all of that choose to lend themselves to workings for humanity as a whole, society as a whole, for the collective as a whole, because at the end of the day, there is more that connects us than divides us, and that there are ancestors out there that work specifically in this way and on this level. And so we're going to draw 3 cards to get a message from them. And we'll probably be stringing it all together. This deck just kind of has a keyword, so we're just going to see what keywords come up and go from there, see if we feel to move to draw any sort of connections. Again, if I draw connections here and you draw other connections, that's perfectly okay. If you feel like something resonates with you in a certain way, then by all means, take it that way. You know, take what resonates with you, leave the rest behind. All right, so 3 cards. First, we have beauty. Then we have ancestors. And then we have thought. You know, the thought card to me really echoes back to the Queen of Swords, that we saw earlier, and really thinking things through, making sure that we have a plan, making sure that we are aware of the potential consequences of our action. Also, you know, with compassion, being thoughtful towards others. So I feel like that's more of just a reaffirming something we've already heard in this reading. The fact that we got beauty, ancestors, and thought, that the ancestors came out in the message from the ancestors, you know, we could take that a couple of different ways. One is that these collective ancestors or ancestors of the collective really wish to work with us in raising up all of humanity, raising up the collective, helping us to bring about and generate changes that will be positive for the whole. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do ancestor work. And so we can work with this collective, But we can also work on an individual level with our own ancestors as part of each individual is a part of the whole. So doing the work on the collective level is great and will help us, but also doing that work on an individual level. And I know that there are people that shy away from working with their ancestors, and not all ancestors are created equal. I do talk about when it comes to difficult ancestors in your line and addressing that, working that, lifting them up, things like that. Not working with those specific ancestors if that's not what's right for you, healing when it is right, a myriad of things that I talk about when it comes to problematic ancestors. We all have them. I don't care who you are and where you come from. Everyone has problematic ancestors in their line. It's just a fact of life for all people. So we don't want to work with just any old ancestor. We are being called to do ancestor work so that we can come together as generations back through time and forward through time to create a society that is more beneficial and better sustains the well-being of us as human beings. And we need to work with ancestors that support that and can aid us on that particular journey. So we do want to be selective in the ancestors that we work with, but the ancestors are really saying, hey, we want to help. We want humanity to be better and do better. And we are here to work with you. We're on your side. Just allow us to help. Ask us to help. Work with whatever ancestors you are comfortable working with and fit the situation. And beauty, the ancestors want to create something beautiful. We want to create something beautiful. We want society to be beautiful. And I do think that's the case. I think there are more people in society that want a world where all of our needs are met. We're not actually in competition with each other. That is an illusion that has been thrust upon us by those little Napoleons on the rocking chairs known as the 1%, that have tried to tell us that we are divided and we are separate and we are fighting each other, when really the only thing we need to fight is that little Napoleonic emperor complex on the rocking horse that is the 1%. That's where the real battle is. And so there's beauty in realizing that all have value and we all are deserving and we all deserve a place to live and food to eat and healthcare. These are basic human rights. And if you don't agree with me, then there's nothing I can do for you. There's nothing I can say to help you. But we all deserve that. And what a beautiful world it would be if we took even the first step towards that. So in summary, the ancestors, the ones that are not problematic, are here and ready, and they are ready to ride this wave that is a universal year one, that is the Wheel of Fortune energy, for us to take things in our own way and to shape our future the way we want it to be for the collective as a whole, to make the collective better, stronger, healthier, more beneficial to the whole, to create something that down the line, as more and more progress is made, will become sustainable and beneficial to the well-being of the collective. All right, so for this one, I have already gone ahead and drawn all 12 cards. One card per zodiac sign. We're going to go through them in order. These are your keywords per zodiac sign for year 2026. I'm using the Universal Folk Oracle. Now, again, ideally, I would break each sign into its own chapter on YouTube, but we are conserving spoons here. So if you have a sign that is later on in the list, you may want to skip ahead a little bit or use the 2x feature to speed through the signs that do not relate to you. So starting off with Aries, we have renewal, The keywords are renewal, rhythm, healing, and rest. For Taurus, we have joy, affirmation, surroundings, light, and beauty. Then for Gemini, we have manifest, dreams, journal, moon, and sleep. For Cancer, we have create, dynamic, inspiring, energy, and gifts. Then for Leo, we have empowerment, expansion, together, prosper, and divine. For Virgo, we have uncover, dowsing, pendulum, answers, integrity. For Libra, we have enchanted, childlike, wonder, fae, gateways. Then for Scorpio, we have mystery, revelation, discovery, secrets, and unveil. For Sagittarius, we have direction, true calling, and life path. Capricorns, we have harvest, abundance, gratitude, security, and patience. For Aquarius, we have harmony, balance, energy, breath, flow. And lastly, for Pisces, we have kinship, teamwork, connection, sharing, and supporting. Now, how you apply those to your life is up to you, but those are keywords to contemplate and or embrace for 2026. I hope that you have enjoyed our peek into 2026. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like, leave an intention or a goal that you'd like to meet in 2026 down in the comments below so that we can all cheer each other on. If you'd like to purchase any of my educational material, you can do so on my Etsy shop. If you'd like to book a reading, you can message me for availability. Wishing you all the very happiest of holidays. Stay safe, and until I see you again, my lovelies, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.